They circled me like wolves, laughing as I gripped the yoke with trembling hands. "Sweetheart, maybe try flight simulator first," the lead pilot sneered. What they didn't know? I'd flown combat missions over 3 war zones. My hands weren't shaking from fear. They were shaking from holding back my rage. If you've ever been underestimated, hit that like button right now. Because what happened next? It changed everything. Make sure you're subscribed because this story gets absolutely wild. My name is Rhea. I'm 29 years old, and I've spent the last 8 years of my life in the cockpit of military aircraft, flying missions most people can't even imagine. 217 combat hours. That's not just a number. That's 217 hours of split-second decisions, of dodging enemy fire, of bringing my crew home alive when everything went wrong. I've landed planes with failing engines on aircraft carriers in the middle of storms. I've flown through conditions that would make seasoned pilots refuse to take off. I'm a lieutenant in the Air Force, and I'm damn good at what I do. But none of that mattered the day I walked into Clearwater Aviation Academy. See, military intelligence had a problem. Someone at this elite civilian flight school was selling classified information, flight patterns, tactical data, stuff that could get people killed. And they needed someone on the inside. Someone who could blend in, investigate quietly, catch whoever was dirty. So they picked me. The catch? I had to hide everything. My rank, my experience, my entire identity. They created a fake personnel file that showed nothing but a basic civilian certification. On paper, I was just another wannabe pilot trying to break into the industry. I'll never forget that first morning, walking into the hangar, the sharp smell of jet fuel hitting my lungs. It felt like coming home. The aircraft gleamed under the fluorescent lights, beautiful and powerful, and every instinct in my body screamed to run my hands along those wings, to climb into that cockpit where I belonged. But I couldn't. I had to shuffle in like some nervous beginner, clutching my fake folder, pretending I didn't know the difference between a yoke and a joystick. That's when I met Thorn. He was standing in the center of the hangar like he owned it. And maybe he did. 45 years old, silver hair perfectly styled, that cocky smile that comes from years of being the best in the room, chief flight instructor, the king of this particular castle. His eyes swept over me the second I walked in, and I could see the dismissal happen in real time. He didn't see a pilot. He saw a girl, an inconvenience. "You sure you're in the right place, honey?" he said, walking over with his hand extended. His handshake lingered too long, his grip just a little too familiar. "The cafe is next door." The 2 guys flanking him laughed right on cue. Declan, 32, with that competitive edge that screamed insecurity. And Hayes, 38, the follower who'd laugh at anything his boss said. They looked at me like I was a punchline they'd been waiting for. I smiled, played it sweet. "No, sir. I'm here to instruct." Thorn's eyebrows went up, and he glanced at Declan with this amused smirk. "Instruct? Well?" He drew out the word, making it sound ridiculous. "We'll see about that. Why don't you start by observing? Learn how things work around here before we put you anywhere near an actual aircraft." I wanted to tell him I'd forgotten more about flying than he'd ever know. I wanted to slam my credentials on that hangar floor and watch his face crumble, but I couldn't. So instead, I nodded, swallowed my pride, and said, "Yes, sir. Whatever you think is best." That's how it started. Day 1 of the longest 3 months of my life. 2 weeks in, and I'd become their favorite joke. Every single day, it was something new. Thorn would walk past me in the briefing room and make comments just loud enough for everyone to hear. Make sure someone who actually knows what they're doing checks her work. Declan loved asking me to bring coffee during instructor meetings, then acting surprised when I showed up with it. "Oh, I was kidding, but I guess you really are good for something." Hayes would just laugh, always laughing. That sound started haunting my dreams. The worst part? I had to take it. Every condescending smile, every patronizing comment, every moment they treated me like I was stupid, I had to swallow it all and smile back. At night, I'd go back to my apartment and stare at my lieutenant bars hidden in my sock drawer. I'd hold them in my hands and remind myself why I was doing this. People's lives depended on finding out who was selling that classified data. My pride didn't matter, except it did. God, it really did. Then Thorne decided it was time for me to try flying. He announced it during the morning briefing, in front of 30 students and every instructor on staff. All right, everyone, today's special. Our little rookie here is finally going to attempt her first real flight. The way he said attempt made it clear he expected me to fail. Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll be right there to save you when you panic. Think of it as training wheels. The room erupted in snickers. I felt every eye on me, measuring, judging, already writing me off. My flight suit felt like a costume I had no right to wear. I wanted to scream that I'd flown missions that would make their training exercises look like video games. Instead, I ducked my head and mumbled, "Thank you, sir." We walked out to the aircraft together, this parade of humiliation. Students lined up to watch, other instructors gathered with their arms crossed, smirking. Thorne walked beside me, performing for his audience. Now remember, if you start to lose control, just take your hands off everything and I'll fix it. No shame in admitting when something's too much for you. In the cockpit, he settled into the instructor seat beside me with this satisfied smile, like he was doing me this enormous favor. Okay, let's start simple. Straight and level flight. Think you can handle that? I could have flown that aircraft in my sleep. I could have executed combat maneuvers that would have left him motion sick and begging me to land. Instead, I made my hands shake. I overcorrected every input. I forgot radio protocols and let my voice sound uncertain. I flew exactly like someone who had no idea what they were doing. Christ, Thorne muttered, loud enough for the radio to pick up. Okay, I'm taking over before you kill us both. He seized the controls and made a big show of correcting my mistakes, his voice smooth and confident over the intercom for everyone listening on the ground. The landing was pure showboating, nothing special, but he acted like he'd just saved us from certain death. When we climbed out, the crowd was waiting. Thorne soaked it up, shaking his head with this disappointed but not surprised expression. Then he said it, loud enough for everyone to hear. You know what the problem is today? Participation trophies. Everyone thinks they can do anything just because they want to. Some people just aren't cut out for aviation. He turned and looked directly at me. Case in point. Some girls think watching Top Gun makes them pilots. The laughter hit me like a physical blow. I tried to walk away. I just wanted to disappear into the locker room, peel off this flight suit that suddenly felt suffocating, and remind myself that this was temporary, that I was better than this, that their opinions didn't matter. But Declan had other plans. He stepped right into my path, holding a steaming cup of coffee, that same mocking grin plastered across his face. Whoa there, hotshot! Where you going? We were just starting to have fun. I tried to step around him, but he moved with me, and suddenly his shoulder collided with mine. Hard. The coffee went everywhere, down my chest, soaking through my flight suit, burning hot against my skin. I gasped and jumped back, and the entire hangar went silent for exactly 1 second before the laughter exploded again. Oh man, I'm so sorry, Declan said, but his voice was dripping with sarcasm. He held up his hands in mock surrender. Totally an accident. You're not gonna get all aggressive on me now, are you? I stood there dripping with coffee, my face burning so hot I thought my skin might actually catch fire. But it wasn't shame, not even close. It was pure, white-hot rage. Every muscle in my body tensed. I wanted to grab him by his collar and show him exactly how aggressive I could get. I'd taken down men twice his size in combat training. I could have him on the ground before he even knew what happened. But I couldn't. The mission. Remember the mission, Rhea. Thorne stepped forward and I actually thought for half a second that he might defend me. Maybe tell Declan to back off. Maybe show a shred of human decency. Instead, he looked me up and down with this exaggerated concern that was somehow worse than the mockery. You know what? Maybe this whole pilot thing isn't for you. Have you ever considered flight attendant school? Seriously, you'd look good in the uniform, better suited to your skill set. The hangar erupted. Students doubled over laughing. Hayes was practically crying. Even some of the people I thought were decent, who'd given me sympathetic looks before, were smiling. Covering their mouths, sure, but smiling. I stood there in the center of it all, coffee dripping onto the concrete floor, surrounded by 30 people who saw me as nothing more than entertainment. A joke. A silly girl who'd wandered into a man's world and was finally learning her place. Something inside me cracked. Not broke. Cracked. Like ice on a frozen lake right before it shatters completely. I could feel it spreading through my chest, this cold, crystalline fury that made everything suddenly very clear. I was done. Done pretending to be weak. Done playing their victim. Done letting these mediocre pilots with their inflated egos treat me like I was beneath them. I looked Thorne straight in the eye. My voice came out steady, calm, almost pleasant. You know what? You're absolutely right. His eyebrows shot up. He hadn't expected agreement. I should definitely reconsider my approach here, I continued, pulling the coffee-soaked fabric away from my skin. Thank you for the feedback, sir. Very enlightening. I walked past them all, my boots echoing in the sudden quiet. I could feel their eyes on my back, probably thinking they'd finally broken me. That I was quitting. Running away with my tail between my legs. They had no idea. That night, I stayed late. Very late. The academy was empty, just security lights and the hum of equipment. I sat down at Thorne's computer. Military intelligence had given me access codes for exactly this reason, and I started digging. The files were encrypted, but I'd been trained for this. My fingers flew across the keyboard, running decryption algorithms while my heart hammered against my ribs. Every creak of the building made me freeze, listening for footsteps. If anyone caught me here, the entire operation would collapse. 3 months of humiliation would be for nothing. Then the first file opened, and everything made sense. Flight patterns, tactical approach routes, defense grid coordinates. Thorne wasn't just selling information, he was selling secrets that could get military pilots killed. My friends, my squadron, people I'd flown with, fought beside, trusted with my life. And he was handing it all over to foreign buyers like it was nothing more than a business transaction. My hands started shaking again, but this time it wasn't an act. I scrolled deeper, and that's when I found the payment records, offshore accounts, wire transfers, numbers that made my stomach turn. But here's what made it worse. Thorne wasn't working alone. Declan's name appeared throughout the documents. Hayes had his own access codes. The three of them had built an entire network, using the academy as a front to funnel classified data to the highest bidder. They'd been doing this for 2 years. 2 years of betraying everything they'd supposedly sworn to protect. And they'd been so arrogant, so confident in their little kingdom, that they'd barely bothered to cover their tracks. They thought they were untouchable. I kept reading, and that's when I found the timeline. They had a major exchange planned in 48 hours. During the Academy's annual emergency response demonstration, this big public event where they showed off for VIP guests, military brass, government officials, media coverage. Thorne was scheduled to lead a rescue simulation, some flashy display of advanced maneuvers that would have cameras everywhere. And buried in the metadata of the flight plan, I found it. Hidden data packets scheduled to transmit during the demonstration. They were going to use the event as cover, sending encrypted files to their buyers while everyone watched them play hero. The audacity of it actually made me laugh, a sharp, bitter sound in the empty office. But then an idea started forming. A beautiful, perfect, absolutely insane idea. The demonstration was their moment to shine, and it could be mine too. I could volunteer to be part of the flight crew. They'd say yes because I'd become their joke, their comic relief. Put the scared little girl in the plane, let her panic in front of all the important people, really drive home how superior they were. They wouldn't be able to resist, but here's what they wouldn't see coming. I could force a situation where Thorne couldn't fly, where he'd be exposed in front of everyone who mattered, not just as a traitor, but as a coward. And I could catch them red-handed with the data transfer, all while every military official and news camera in the region watched. One move, one flight. I could complete my mission and destroy them at the same time. The risk was enormous. If I miscalculated the timing, they'd slip away. If I revealed myself too soon, they'd abort and I'd lose my only chance to catch them in the act. And if anything went wrong in the air, with VIPs watching, the fallout would be catastrophic. I stared at the screen, at Thorne's smug professional photo attached to his personnel file. I thought about every condescending word, every mocking laugh, every moment they'd made me feel small. Then I smiled. I pulled out my encrypted phone and typed a message to my commanding officer. Found them, all 3. I have a plan for demonstration day. Trust me. The reply came back in seconds. Make it count, Lieutenant. Oh, I would. Demonstration day dawned bright and clear. Perfect flying weather, the kind of day that makes you believe anything is possible. I arrived at the academy early, watching the setup unfold like a choreographed performance. White VIP tents sprouted across the tarmac. News crews tested their equipment. Military officials arrived in dress uniforms, their brass gleaming in the morning sun. Government observers clustered in serious groups, clipboards in hand. This was the academy's biggest event of the year, and Thorne was treating it like his personal coronation. I found him holding court near the aircraft, surrounded by admirers, his flight suit pressed to perfection. When I approached and volunteered to be part of the crew, his eyes lit up with cruel delight. You want to fly today, in front of all these people? He turned to Declan and Hayes, grinning. Gentlemen, I think we just found our entertainment for the afternoon. What do you say? Should we let our rookie come along? They agreed immediately, already laughing at jokes they hadn't made yet. I played my part perfectly. Nervous smile, grateful voice, the eager student just hoping not to mess up too badly. Inside, every nerve in my body hummed with anticipation. The pre-flight brief was pure theater. Thorne explained the demonstration to the gathered crowd, his voice booming with authority, precision maneuvers, emergency response protocols, a showcase of elite aviation skill. He barely mentioned me, and our assistant will be managing equipment in the rear, like I was cargo. The crowd barely glanced my way. We boarded the 6-seat transport plane. Thorne took pilot command, Hayes slid into the co-pilot seat, Declan positioned himself as observer, and I settled in the back with the equipment. As we taxied out, I could see the VIP tent through the window. Hundreds of people watching, cameras tracking our movement. Everything was perfect. We lifted off, and Thorne immediately started showboating. Steep climbs, sharp banks, nothing too dangerous but enough to make the ground crew applaud. His voice over the radio was smooth, confident, narrating every move for the audience below. Now we'll demonstrate a tactical approach pattern, the kind used in hostile territory rescue operations. That's when I triggered it. The smoke device I'd planted during pre-flight checks activated. Not dangerous. Military-grade training equipment designed to simulate emergencies, but extremely convincing. Gray smoke started billowing through the cockpit, and the warning alarms screamed to life. Thorne's smooth voice cracked. What's happening? Hayes panicked immediately, his hands flying across the controls with no coordination. I don't know. Smoke. We've got smoke. Where's it coming from? Thorne shouted, and I could hear the fear bleeding through. His hands jerked on the yoke, overcorrecting, the aircraft lurching sickeningly. Air traffic control came through, urgent. Transport 907, we see smoke. What's your status? You need to land immediately. Who's in command? Thorne froze, actually froze, his hands trembling on the controls, his face pale, sweat beading on his forehead. The great chief instructor, the man who'd mocked me for shaking hands, was falling apart. Hayes looked at him desperately. Boss, what do we do? I unbuckled and moved forward, my voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. I've got it. Thorne's head whipped around. You? Are you insane? You'll kill us all! I grabbed his shoulder and pulled him back with enough force to make it clear this wasn't a suggestion. My voice came out cold, steady, absolutely calm. The voice I'd used in actual combat when lives hung in the balance. Sit down and stay quiet, trainee. My hands touched the controls, and it was like coming home after years in exile. Every tremor disappeared. Every pretense fell away. This was who I really was. Not the scared little girl they'd invented, but the pilot who'd earned every single one of those 217 combat hours. I killed the smoke device remotely, cleared the cockpit ventilation, and silenced the alarms. Then I pushed the aircraft into a tactical descent pattern that made Declan grab his seat and gasp. Not because it was dangerous, because it was perfect. Combat precision flying that civilians never see outside of military demonstrations. Air traffic control came back, confusion in their voice. Transport 9 or 7, identify pilot. Those are military-grade maneuvers. I switched to the external radio so the entire crowd could hear. This is Lieutenant Rhea Voss. Military identification Tango 749er, 217 combat hours, requesting emergency landing and security at the terminal. The silence in the cockpit was deafening. I could feel Thorne staring at me, his mouth hanging open, his brain trying desperately to reconcile the woman flying this aircraft with the bumbling rookie he'd tormented for 3 months. Declan had gone completely white. Hayes looked like he might throw up. I brought us down in a textbook tactical landing, the kind where every motion is precise, efficient, pure muscle memory from doing it 100 times under actual fire. The wheels kissed the runway so smoothly you barely felt the touchdown. As we taxied in, I could see military police vehicles already surrounding our destination point. The moment we stopped, I shut down the engines and turned to face them. "Oh, and gentlemen? Those encrypted files you were planning to transmit during this flight. Military intelligence has been monitoring every single packet. We have everything." Thorne's face went from white to gray. This whole time, I confirmed, standing up and opening the door where military police were already waiting. Every condescending comment, every joke, every moment you made me feel small. I was building a case against you. They were pulled from the aircraft in handcuffs. The crowd that had gathered to watch Thorne's triumphant demonstration now watched him being arrested for treason. News cameras captured every second. Military officials I recognized from my own service stood at attention as I climbed down, and my commanding officer, a woman I'd served under for 4 years, stepped forward. She addressed the stunned crowd, her voice carrying across the tarmac. "Lieutenant Voss has been working undercover for 3 months as part of a military intelligence operation. She has 217 combat flight hours across 3 theaters of operation, including hostile territory rescue missions and tactical support operations. She is one of our most decorated pilots under the age of 30. I stood there in my flight suit, watching Thorne being led away. He looked back once, and the expression on his face was everything I'd needed to see. Not just shock, complete devastation. The realization that the woman he'd treated like dirt could fly circles around him, that every laugh, every insult, every moment of cruelty had been aimed at someone so far beyond his level, he couldn't even comprehend it. Some of the instructors who'd joined in the mockery tried to approach me afterward, apologies already forming on their lips. I kept my responses professional, distant. They didn't deserve my forgiveness, and I wasn't interested in giving it. But standing there in the hangar later, finally wearing my uniform with my lieutenant bars visible, my real credentials on display, I felt something shift. Those 3 months hadn't broken me, they'd sharpened me. Because here's what I learned. People who truly have power don't need to humiliate others to prove it. They were so busy making me feel small because deep down, they knew they were mediocre. And that insecurity, that's what destroyed them in the end. I'm back on active duty now, still flying, still serving. Sometimes I train new pilots, and you know what? I treat every single one of them with respect, regardless of their background or experience level, because I remember what it felt like to be underestimated, to be dismissed, to have people assume you're nothing based on how you look. If someone's trying to make you feel small right now, remember this. People who are truly confident don't need to diminish others. Keep your head up, master your craft, and when your moment comes, and it will come, make it count. Those 3 months of coffee stains and cruel laughter, Worth every second to see the look on Thorne's face when he realized the truth. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong, it's becoming so undeniably excellent that they have to watch you soar while they fall. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment telling me about a time you were underestimated. Hit that subscribe button for more stories about people who got the last laugh. And remember, never, ever let anyone clip your wings. You were born to fly.